Welcome back to another episode of Kinstretch with the Fitness Alchemists. Today is all about training your ankles for that really important motion of dorsiflexion, but specifically in a straight leg position. Because once the knee gets straight, the dynamics at your ankle change a bit compared to when the knee is bent. For this class, you're gonna do a good bit of work standing, and you're gonna want some wall space. You don't need a lot, but you do need it to be a nice stable wall that you can really push against so that we can train the strong muscles of your lower leg. As well, you might want a block or a pillow, something to sneak behind your knee when we're doing some seated work. So either of those objects are fine. And then potentially a sort of a small hardcover book. Hardcover kind of is important to make sure it doesn't move around on you. So gather those items and then go ahead and start in a standing position. We're going to get warmed up from the floor, kind of start warming up from the bottom of your body upwards. So start by just reaching one leg out in front of you, straighten out that knee as best you can, and really stare down your leg to make sure that that leg's not going to rotate at all. And then we're going to move through an ankle car, starting by pulling your toes up to your knee, then reaching out to the side, coming down into a point position, and then all the way back in towards your midline and back up. Once your toes get back to that top position, keep going in this direction, in this circle, smoothing out any parts of that circle that are a little jumpy or where you don't feel clear contraction. And then also you can tune into what your toes are doing. Ideally, we would like those toes to just be a constant extension of your foot and not be flexing or extending on their own, but that can be pretty tough to feel if the ankle car is newer for you. All right. Next time you get into that gas pedal up position, pause and start going the other way. Also just calling out that as we do these from standing, the actual standing leg, the non-moving leg, is going to be asked to work, and that's sort of part of the input. So if you're feeling that, way to go. Just give this a few more seconds. Good. And let that go. All right, we're going to switch over to the other ankle. Give that first leg a little rest. Again, stare down the leg, make sure the knee is as straight as possible, and then toe pulls up to your knee for gas pedal up to start. And start reaching that foot out to the side, reaching all the way down to a point, and then tracing that circle all the way up. Keep moving at your own pace. And there's so much you might be feeling in the ankle. It's a really kind of dense, tough joint. So if you're feeling any stretches, that's a great thing to key into. And you almost want to try to find stretches in those other spots where the stretch maybe is not as obvious at first as you progress through, trying to really hunt for that stretch. You might also feel contraction sensation. As you come into this gas pedal up position, just pause, and the contraction I mean is in that shortening side. So as we go now the other direction, maybe track and see if you can feel what parts of your ankle are contracting as you pull yourself into each of these angles, each of these positions. And again, letting the rest of your body really feel alive and awake. So you're standing tall, you're feeling your muscles working for 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. Okay. We're going to go back to that first leg and just set the heel on the floor, kind of out in front of you, so we can actually train specifically the bottom of your foot. So again, gas pedal up and see if you can't charge that tissue that's doing that job up a little bit. So you're really working for gas pedal up. And then focus on curling your toes to start contracting the bottom of your feet even while you keep that ankle position. And then you'll just open up the bottom of your foot to spread your toes apart and up and back and forth. So we're just almost trying to segment the muscles and bones of your feet into flexion and extension at the toe. Good. Very nice. And as you get a feel for this, see if you can spill over from the toes even into the midfoot. See if you can get some motion and articulation in that middle part of your foot. Again, without losing the strong gas pedal up at your ankle. So really trying to give the brain some idea of, oh, there are different independent movable joints here. They're not all forced to move together. Yeah, good. Maybe feeling the pinky coming online as we go for another 10 seconds. Might be easier to feel one side of the foot than the other. So really try to get the whole foot involved and let that go. Nice. All right, going to the other side, camping your heel on the floor, pulling that toe up, that ankle up into dorsiflexion, and then start curling just your toes and the bottom of your foot into a nice strong contraction, and then all the way back up. I sometimes joke with people that you want to feel like you're trying to pick something up with the bottom of your foot as if that was a possibility. And the more you can entertain that idea, sometimes the more tissue you're able to actually talk to. Good. Yeah, what would it take to pick up a baseball off the floor with your foot? Good. As that starts to become more clear, maybe play with how much can you stretch your toes apart as they start to open back up. Can you get some daylight between each toe? There we go. Good stuff. 10 more seconds. And let that go. Very nice, okay? Now we'll move up the chain to the hip. And you can stay standing. Make sure you are holding on to something for balance so that that's not distracting for you. And then let's start either leg that you'd like, pulling your thigh up to your stomach, making sure you're braced and strong so your pelvis stays still, and then wind up external rotation as much as you can find of lifting that ankle. And then try to keep that rotation as you reach your leg out to the side. Keep that height as you start to reach your heel behind you. And then really keep that bend in your knee as you reach that leg all the way back and touch it to your other knee. Let's just pause there and then go straight back from here to reverse course and trace your path. Great. I love how Hannah's using her free hand to monitor how her torso is staying braced. You could equally put your hand on the side of your pelvis, on your lower back, or out to the side for a nice strong extra irradiation for your upper body. Whatever you're choosing to use, though, really feel that non-moving part of your frame staying put, staying still. Great. 15 more seconds, moving at your pace. Doing your little inventory on your hip joint today. Breathing around braced abs for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and melt that away. Very nice. Okay, shake it out. Give your body a chance of no tension or low tension. And then that will make it more obvious to your nervous system when you actually build tension up for this other side. Okay, so find your balance point. Build that solid brace through your midsection, planting your leg that was just moving down into the floor, like you're almost reaching through the floor and rooting into the ground. And then lift your other moving side here up into hip flexion, external rotate the hip, and then keep that rotation as you reach your leg out to the side, reach your heel back. Good. And touch knees together to pause and reverse course. Now, similar to the ankle motion, go ahead and look for those sensations of stretch anywhere that you might feel them as you go through this car. Similarly, you could look for sensations of contraction. Both of those things are good ways to help you feel how close to end range you are. And with a car, we want to try to be working right at your end range at every single position. So go as slow as you need to really find that for yourself. Got about 20 more seconds. Keep your breathing smooth, calm, even while you're working hard through your midsection to stay braced. Good. Three, 2, 1, and relax. Excellent. Okay, so hoping you feel a little more warmed up. we're going to now do a little bit more warming up or conditioning now for the tissues we're going to try to stretch, which are in your calf. So I'll have Hannah just turn sort of towards me so you can see from the side. We're going to start with just your basic calf raise. Again, you might want a hand on a balance object so you're not worried about balance, but make the fronts of your feet heavy, your toes and your forefoot, so that you can start to lift your heels straight up off the ground. And when you get there, just make sure that your ankle bones are not falling out to the side, kind of like sickling out to the side. We want to lift the heels only as high as you can straight up, and then control your way down, just touch your heels to the floor and go right back up. All right, so keep moving like this for the remainder of 30 seconds. The goal being to really load the back of your lower leg, so you really feel all those muscles in your calf, maybe up into your hips, really working and engaging. And filling with blood. That's the main thing, is that when it's filled with blood, then it's much more pliable and ready to stretch. And that's so key when we're talking about really big, dense tissue around the ankle. Couple more here. You might feel that that top position is getting harder to access. So just reaching for it, and then set your heels all the way down. Nice. We're going to do this very similar motion, but now bring your heels to touch together or as close as feels comfortable, and walk your toes outward as far as you can. And then if you kind of look down your legs, you can see that that rotation outward is actually happening from your hips. Can you engage your hips into that externally rotated feel? Sometimes I find like a surprise cramp there. Okay, so just look for that. Okay, and then same as before, make the fronts of your feet heavy. Start lifting your heels, but make sure they stay together or stay close. So again, that they're not falling apart, okay? So find however much external rotation of your feet you can and still keep those heels together as you lift. Good. Might be a little bit harder to engage than the straightforward. It might also be easier. It just depends on where your musculature kind of predominates, where your strength is. Give me 10 more seconds here. Good. Pushing with all 5 toes on both feet. And then smoothly lower down. Okay, shake that out. And we're going to do one final set of calf raises to really burn out your calves. Internally rotate your legs so that your toes are toward each other and your heels are reaching apart now. All right. This can feel kind of weird, so take a moment to just check in on, okay, what am I asking my hips to do? And then you can squeeze your butt and start lifting your heels smoothly. Again, watching out for your ankles trying to fall out to the side. So we don't want the ankles to go whoosh and roll outwards. We really want to just lift straight up there. Going as high as you can, maintain that smooth inline motion of ankles in line with knees, not falling out to the side. 10 more seconds, really getting a pump in the back of your calves, back of your lower legs. Good. And one final rep, really smoothly lowering your heels to the floor and setting down. Excellent. Okay, we'll come back for a bit more standing in a second, but come down to seated now. And here's where you're going to want to grab your block or pillow. All right, and just throw that behind your, let's say, left knee. Let's all work together on the left side. Your right leg is sort of choose your own adventure. We want it out of the picture, so I would recommend bending that knee, but it could be bent straight up. It could be out to the side like figure 4. You just don't want to be distracted by that hip or that leg, so you can really focus on your leg over the block. All right, and then from here, we're going to just be working on something called terminal knee extension, how far you can actually straighten your knee or extend your knee. And it's really straightforward to feel here because with the block, you're going to just start pushing the back of your knee down into the block. And as you do, you'll notice your foot trying to come off the floor. Go ahead, go with that. And then once your foot doesn't lift anymore, take a look at your kneecap and notice how it is being pulled up your thigh. And that's really the target of this exercise, that you're contracting all of this tissue. So as you relax it, feel that tissue slowly and controllably relax, and then go right back up. Kind of like with the ankle raises, you're just touching your heel down and then going right back up to a lock position. All right. And as you continue working on this for another 30 seconds, if you're getting any sort of pain at all with that full extension, then I want you to kind of be tuned into a little bit more subtlety in terms of, can you contract those tissues and stop before the pain starts? So how much can we talk to that contracting tissue of your thigh without pushing over into a painful situation? That'll really help out how you use this part of your body. Okay. On the other hand, if this is starting to feel more clear, you can turn up the intensity and really try to push the back of your knee into the block, really try to extend the knee, and maybe even notice, oh, there's a little hyper extension available, and that's safe and a good idea to train. One final rep. Really feeling that kneecap pull up, and then controlling it as you set your foot down. Awesome. Okay, let's do the other side. Perfect. So find your position with your other leg that is comfy for you. Get that block or pillow parked right behind your knee, and then brace your body just enough that your spine isn't going to move on you without realizing it, and then start pulling the kneecap up, feeling that foot come off the ground, and then back down. Good. Really engaging the tissue. If you need to use a hand to kind of like push into that tissue to feel, oh yeah, it does stiffen up, and then as my foot lowers, it relaxes. This is exactly the kind of body mapping that can make all the difference as you start to kind of rework the relationship with your knee. Good. 10 final seconds here. Maybe increasing the intensity, increasing the control of that contraction, and smoothly lower that heel. Great. Okay, go ahead, come back up to standing for a second round of calf raises. I'm just gonna grab these props out of the way for now. Okay, so for this calf raise, I'm gonna have Hannah turn towards the camera this time, just so you can get a little different vantage point. And again, we're gonna start with feet straight on, kind of like you're wearing two skis, and then start pushing the front of your toes into the floor, front of your foot, until you feel your heels smoothly come off the ground. Really push the floor away until you can't extend those ankles anymore. Then slowly lower and right back up. Good. Very nice. Giving it 15 more seconds, really tuning into that full-on contraction you can find in your lower leg muscles, maybe in the bottoms of your feet, through your heels. Great. 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right, so our next position for these calf raises will be those toes turned out, heels together, and see if you can't rotate those toes a little further this time. It's totally fine if you don't extend your ankles as far as you did with the straight on position. We just want to train in this kind of end range rotation as well. So finding that outward rotation, start to make your forefoot heavy and feel your heels start to come off the ground. Just pausing right before the heels would drop apart. Okay, so keeping those heels towards each other, but really also asking your body to work in this sort of compromised shape where your toes are out to the side. So better to actually be more rotated and not go as high than to be more narrow and go all the way up. Okay, so we really want to get that diversity of input for your calves. Good stuff. 10 more seconds. Finding that complete stop at the top of your lift, knowing that it will be different from day to day, especially if you're coming back to this class for a rewatch. Really ask the maximum from your calf each time, and you'll be rewarded with a changing capacity. Final rep, and lower yourself smoothly. Okay, and then finally, internally rotate your legs. Again, trying to find, okay, right to the edge. First round, maybe it was brand new, but now you're sort of a little bit more familiar, so you can really find that edge. And again, I'd rather have you be more internally rotated and lift a little less high than too narrow with those heels, all right? Then from here, brace, make sure you're gonna keep your balance and start lifting those heels smoothly, finding that top position before your heels roll outward. Good, and see if you can make all 5 toes contribute, so you're not just pushing with your pinky toe side or your big toe side, but you're really spreading out that demand across the whole front of your foot. Good. Can you make that forefoot any heavier to engage any more contraction?
Ooh, yes.
Nice. There we go. 5 seconds. Really flirting with that fatigue or that burnout feeling. That'll really help, and relax. Awesome. Okay. Now come back down to the floor and grab your block or your pillow again. I'm going to start in the same setup we had a second ago, okay? And then we're just going to add on some contraction up the thigh into the hip joint itself. So from here, if you're using a block, probably our favorite way to do this is to actually camp your hands on the block so your torso is a little bit leaned forward. If that didn't feel good on your hip for any reason, you could lean back a little bit, but the key is that you actually feel like you're bracing against the floor with your hands, so you don't feel like you're just floating, all right? So find a place for your hands to camp out, and then really brace your midsection first, so pack some air, then lock your knee out just like we were practicing before. Feel that kneecap pull up your thigh, and then take a moment and try to connect your stomach and your thigh together, almost like you're trying to hold an important piece of paper right there. Keep that hold. Lean back by straightening your arms and bring the leg with you. Holding here for 5, 4, 3, keep working. 2, don't let it go. 1, now very slowly lower the straight leg, and then finally let the knee bend. Okay, so I'm gonna grab just one prop here to help make this more clear. Hannah, if you can sneak that in between your stomach and your thigh. You could grab this at home if you wanted, but mostly it's just so you can really visualize here. She's gonna try to squeeze that washcloth the whole time. That's the focal point, and then the leg kind of just comes along for the ride. Okay, so let's try a second round. Brace your midsection, straighten your knee, pulling that kneecap up. Good, and then before you lean back, really actively connect thigh to belly, and then hold that connection as you lean back, maybe straightening your arms to get there, and hold it. This whole time, trying to bring thigh closer to belly and belly closer to thigh. 2, 1, slow fade back down. Excellent. Okay, final rep, we're really gonna fight for the maximum hinge at your hip. So try to find as much forward lean as you can. Then lock your knee out. Good, straightening that leg all the way to feel your quad turn on. Then connect quad contraction to hip flexor contraction and lean back to bring it with you. Hold it, near max effort. 5, 4, 3, 2, slow fade back down and relax. Yeah, hard work going on here, okay? So as you set up on the other side, just a quick note that cramping is super common in this setup. So if that's you, I want you to only contract as much as you feel like you can before falling over into a full cramp. But the cramp is not to be avoided necessarily. It's just like we're trying to find right that edge before you go over into a full cramp. Another kind of indication of that same phenomenon is the shaking that you were seeing Hannah show. It's just that we're all weak when we work at this real short range of motion for your tissue, and that weakness shows up as cramping and or shaking. Okay, that was your break. Let's get into the other leg here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so hands camped out to feel braced, then lean forward to find end range hip flexion, lock your knee out, really pulling your kneecap up. That has to happen first. Then keep the thigh close to your torso as you lean back so that the leg comes with you, and you're training your hip in its shortest position for 4, 3, 2, super slow lower to the floor, okay? On these These next 2 reps for this side, I'm going to attach a parachute, imaginary parachute, to this leg so that as we finish this next rep, you're going to lower it even more slowly. All right, let's set up, lean forward, brace your midsection, lock your knee out straight, then consciously connect thigh to belly and belly to thigh, and then straighten your arms to lift that leg, bringing it with your torso for 5, 4, 3, can you bring it closer to your face? 2, 1, parachute landing here. Yes! Ooh, very nice. Good. Okay, final rep here. Leaning forward, look for a stretch through your hamstring, maybe the kind of the base of your butt muscle. Good. And then really lift your tail feathers, lift your chest so that you truly are hinging at your hip and you're not just rounding over at your spine. All right, and then once you think you've found end range, final rep. Straighten the knee, really bracing your abs, and then bring that leg with you as you slowly lean back. Hold it. How close can you get your shin to your nose? Belly button to thigh. 3, 2, parachute landing now, and set it down. Awesome job. Okay.
Lamaze breathing on your parachute.
Yeah, doing your best to keep breathing. Real tough. Okay, nice work. So go ahead and now come up to a kneeling position. Now, depending on the surface you're working on, you may want a little extra squish underneath your knee. That could just be a towel or folding over your yoga mat if you're using that. But that's going to really help you focus now on the ankle and not on the knee. So step your left foot forward. Okay, so we would call this half kneeling. And then you're going to keep your torso still and just walk that left foot out to the side. You want to walk it out to the side as far as your hip will allow, maybe finding an inner thigh stretch on that left leg, or maybe feeling some other limit on that left hip, but what we're not doing is letting the torso follow towards that left side. Okay, so really find this position. And then we're also going to need to find the placement for that left foot. It's going to be a little different for each person because we want to feel that you can stretch that ankle. Yeah, right in there. Okay, so if you place your left forearm on your left thigh, maybe double up those arms so you feel really braced, and then lean to the left, you should be able to hunt out a line of tension on the back of that lower leg. Now, if you don't feel it, try walking the foot a little closer to your right leg. On the other hand, if you feel kind of like jammed up in your hips and you still haven't found the stretch, you might need to walk your foot a little further out. So do play with that variable. But the goal is to hone in on the most delicious stretch you can that's sort of sustainable, meaning you can kind of camp out in that stretch a little bit. Okay? Yeah, good. It shouldn't feel like too much work for your left thigh yet. It'll get there. Okay, so right now we're just deep breathing, honing in on that line of stretch. And I want you to consciously imagine that the more that you breathe, the more you let this tissue go, and the more you let your knee fall forward over those toes. The key is that you don't let your left heel off the ground. So that's sort of the stopper point. Okay, now from this end range, don't move from there yet, but start very gradually ramping up a Pale's contraction by making your toes heavy into the floor, your left toes. And then keep that and add on your forefoot getting heavy, your heels still on the ground. And then really turn that up to feel like a strong gas pedal down contraction. But as you do, you'll probably need to lean your arms harder into your thigh so that your heel doesn't come off the ground. And then keep ramping up that intensity. Forefoot is going gas pedal down. Forearms are pushing harder and heavier into the thigh until you feel like a true battle is going on in this tissue. It's really trying to move your leg, but you're not letting it. And now very slowly allow that knee to start moving back until you get it right over the ankle. Pause there. Okay? From here, think gas pedal up instead. So the front of your shin is lit up. You could even lift your forefoot off the ground to get that feeling clear. And then use that feeling to pull your knee back forward keeping your heel on the ground, but really trying to find the maximum angle you can at your ankle. When you've found that edge, pause, think gas pedal down, heavy forearms, and then very slowly drive your knee back. Okay? You're on the clock here. Keep going back and forth at your pace for the next 30, 40 seconds. Each time being hyper clear about what side of the joint are you contracting. As that knee moves forward, you want to be focusing on contracting the front of the ankle, the shortening part of the ankle. As your knee moves back, you want to feel hyper clear about contracting the back of the lower leg, even the bottom of your foot. Okay? So let this exercise be really a focus on building awareness of contraction, building your ability to control that contraction, and using those contractions to really maximize how much angle or how much range of motion you're able to find in this ankle here. 10 more seconds, team. Good, and let that go. Very nice, okay? That's pretty spicy full body exercise actually. So give yourself a quick break and let's set up on the other knee. Okay, so again, start in half kneel and then walk your right knee out to the side.
I know what I'm doing.
You'll get there. Good, okay? And take a moment here again to find your foot placement that you need in order to get a stretch. Now it kind of makes sense, but the more often that you do this drill, the more obvious this stretch will become to you. So that at some point you'll go, oh yeah, I know exactly my spot that I need to find my calf stretch. If it's brand new for you, you will need to move it around a little bit. Maybe it'll feel different from day to day. Good, but it is going to be available somewhere near this shape. Okay. Now from here, honing in on that line of tension, before we start moving, we want to find a contraction for that line by gradually making your toe pads heavier and then the forefoot heavier. And then as that really starts to engage gas pedal down, you're going to need your upper body to engage so that your heel doesn't come off the ground. And then turn that up to a real nice intensity, maybe 60 to 70% pales. And then begin pushing your knee slowly backward with that gas pedal down force. When your knee's about over your ankle, pause. Turn on the gas pedal up contraction so the front of your shin is really lit up. And use that to close down the front of your ankle and pull your knee ever further forward. Good. Really staying active here. When you can't pull yourself any more forward, pause, don't move, but make your gas pedal down feeling turn on, and then use that to start driving yourself backward. Good. And then continue moving, always finding the contraction first and then moving. Really give yourself that time, those few seconds. It makes all the difference for this kinetic stretch exercise. Maybe feeling new sensations of contraction coming online. Maybe surprising yourself with how far forward you actually can bring your knee. And then how smoothly you can bring your knee backward. Final 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Awesome. Okay, go ahead, come up to standing. We'll give those knees a little break, those kneeling knees. And you're going to turn in a moment, you're going to turn and face towards that wall. I'm thinking when you do, you won't be able to see quite as well. So just take a quick gander of what we're after, and then we'll cue you while you're in position. So you'll set up into a stretch for your ankle, but now with a straight knee. Having both hands on the wall is really going to be helpful for you to feel this contraction. And basically, yeah, you can see Hannah's leaning. Her leg is straight, this stretching leg, and we're trying to find, again, dorsiflexion end range with that back ankle. It's just going to feel like it shows up in a different place and at a different angle because the knee is straight. All right. Now what we don't want is to be too limited by the front of the hip. So if you need to lower your hands down, kind of round your upper back a little bit, that's okay. Good. Because again, we want to find the maximum stretch and line of tension in the back of the lower leg. Yeah, so kind of wedge your way in. So make your way to the wall, get yourself into the same position. And the key point is that you feel that line of tension and that line of stretch. If you feel that, then you know right where we're going to target our contractions in a moment. But again, for now, you're just breathing into that stretch as you get into it. Okay. Take one final inhale and exhale, just trying to melt your way deeper into this tight position. Good. Okay, and this is really just long enough to settle your nervous system. If we actually really wanted to lengthen this tissue, we would need to camp out here for probably 2 to 3 minutes. But for now, we're going to get right into some contraction. So without moving, start feeling your toes again curl and get heavier into the floor. And then add to that your front of your foot, the forefoot. And then continue asking for more gas pedal down. Just don't let your heel come off the ground. I would offer that the more you can engage your forearms into the wall or your hands into the wall, the more you can create this kind of this sort of battle between your upper body and your calf or your ankle. And just ramp that up smoothly through 50% at least, maybe up to 60%. And if that feels good, continue pushing on the wall, pushing with your forefoot up to 70%. Just making sure you're not actually lifting your heel off the ground. It might feel light on the ground, that's okay. All right, and just sustain this another 15 seconds so that you're really getting this pales contraction clear in your body. Good. Now keep this shape in your body, keep your upper body really active and braced, and switch to gas pedal up with that stretching ankle so that now suddenly you're very aware of contracting the front of your lower leg, the top of your foot, and that short side of your ankle joint. That whole line, maybe even up into the front of your thigh. Good. Really trying to lift the front of your foot off the ground and keep your heel on the floor, maybe making your heel heavier for 5, 4, 3, 2, keep your position, but just melt away this contraction. Maybe noticing how the stretch is different now that we've done a little contraction. And then making your way out of the stretch. Okay, good. Just take a second to feel how those two ankles are a little different from each other. Just sensation-wise, maybe space-wise. All right, and then let's settle into a stretch for that other leg. Okay, so step 1 is to find the angle of stretch. Now here's where if you're struggling to find a stretch, like you can't lean far enough into the wall, you might want to grab that book and slide it under your forefoot so that your toes in the front of your foot are elevated, but your heel is still reaching for the floor. And that will immediately take your ankle into more dorsiflexion, meaning you'll need less body lean to get that stretch going. Okay? You want the book or no book?
This side, I think I need it.
Okay, yeah. So that's a great point too. Both legs will need different things. So really take the time and the focus to give the leg what it needs to get to end range, because that's where we want to work. All right. So now that we've found it, take a few deep breaths, getting ready for your body to work hard. Okay. One more inhale, pack that air into your midsection so your upper body's braced. And then very gradually, start with your toe pads getting heavy. And then forefoot starting to engage and get heavy for this gas pedal down feeling. Just monitoring to make sure that heel is not elevating off the floor. Start to push with your upper body. So your upper body and the front of your stretching foot are fighting against each other a little bit. And the battleground is right in that lower leg. Okay, as that becomes clearer to you, start to ramp it up gradually, ramping up the intensity of that contraction, trying to engage as much of the back of your lower leg as possible. So it started with one line of tension, but it's starting to be the whole leg, the whole upper body, ramping it up to 60% effort and 70 if that feels good. And we're going to just hold this, shining a spotlight right on these lengthened tissues so that they learn how to get stronger. They learn how to work for you. 3, 2, keep your bones in place, but just shift to gas pedal up feeling on that working side, finding as much clarity of contraction as you can on the front of the shin, top of the foot, front of the ankle, and maybe even spreading it out to the rest of your body. Can you make your forefoot lighter and your heel heavier? 6 seconds, team. You got this. Really contracting. 3, 2, 1. Melt it away. Keep your shape. Come back to like a low level of tension. And now go ahead, come out of the stretched position. All right, very nice. Okay, so we're going to now kind of come back down to the floor and give the standing work, or the ankle tissue a little break. Focus on the knee for a second before we do our finishing drill. So for this one, you're going to want to get a similar position we had before, but with a little bit of a bend in the knee. So whereas before we were at that knee extension, that terminal knee extension where you've locked your knee, we now want to try to get strong right out of that position. Basically, what your knee has to do right before it locks out. All right? So you'll be able to play with this a little bit, but start with just that little bend in the knee, and we can add bend as needed. Place your hands on the back of your thigh, and then take a moment to start ramping up the heaviness of your heel. Okay, and as you do that, it might be like different tissues kind of lighting up and turning on in the back of your thigh, kind of in your glute area, and maybe at the back of your knee too. Okay, once that becomes clear, maybe a 50% effort of heel pressure into the floor, then you're going to use that heel pressure to start rotating your shin outward and then inward. Now, the straighter your leg gets, the less rotation there will be at the knee. So if this feels super subtle, you can barely feel it, then I invite you to bend your knee a little bit more and keep looking for that rotation. Keep looking for that heavy heel. All right? On the other hand, if this feels like, oh yeah, I really got that, then challenge yourself and see how close to a locked knee you can get and still generate even a tiny bit of rotation. Just realizing that once your knee locks, there is no rotation available at the knee. That's sort of part of what goes with the lock. No more space. Good. Even as that heel pressure is getting tired, keep working in another 15 seconds. Great. Seeing if you can wind out just a little bit more rotation while keeping the thigh still. Good. And let that go. Okay, and switch over to the other side. Yeah.
Surprise space.
Yeah, especially after we've just worked those lower leg tissues, and now we're asking to really work the upper leg tissues. This posterior chain can be barking at you a little bit. Might cause some soreness tomorrow. So find that little bit of bend, and then from there engage that heel pressure. And then once you feel that, start asking for rotation of the lower leg while the thigh stays still. And that's, the hands can be very helpful to kind of monitor that. Good. And you can turn up the intensity of that heel pressure as much as you want. What might start as down with the heel could maybe turn into feeling like you're trying to pull the floor towards you, but your body is braced so that the thigh, again, cannot move, won't come up towards you at all. Good. Scanning back and forth, Noticing where that contraction shifts as your lower leg rotates. Good. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. All right, let that go. So grab your block again or your pillow, okay, and go back to the first side. And we're going to now do a full knee car here, but with a little bit more intensity than usual for a knee car. So start this by placing the block between your thigh and your ribs, thigh and stomach. And just notice here, if your hands are camped behind you, that you can squeeze that block or squeeze that pillow. And then when you lift your foot off the floor by just leaning back slightly, it becomes a pretty engaged position, pretty active position for your hip. Okay, so set it down. If you immediately lost the block, then you might need to set that block a little bit higher or turn the block so that it's a little bit thicker for you, so you have a little bit more space in there to work. Okay, but the goal here is that we really feel an active hip crease. All right, so from there, go ahead and set up in that same position again, crushing the block, lifting the foot so you engage that hip, and then bend the knee as tightly as you can to start. Externally rotate like we were just working. Keep that external rotation as you straighten as much as you can while holding the block. Then internally rotate and heel to butt. Good. Do one more in this direction, externally rotated. Straighten up, internally rotate, and bend down. Good. Set your heel down for a quick moment. Now in this separate direction, I want you to imagine that I'm right there with you and I'm trying to take the block from you the whole time and see if that doesn't elicit a little bit more contraction. Hannah's like, oh no, he's going to try to take the block. I am. Okay? So crush the block, thigh to belly, belly to thigh. Then once that's clear, lift the heel. Internally rotate that bent knee. Start to straighten. Don't let me take that block from you. Good. One more pass, internally rotated, going slow. It'll get harder to crush the block the straighter your leg gets, so really fight for it. Bend that knee, heel to butt, and relax. Ooh. Awesome work, okay? So if you've never done a knee car that way, it might feel like, what the? Just, you know, give yourself some credit to come back and notice improvement when you do. All right, let's do that other leg.
What in tibial tarnation?
Love it. You getting any crampies?
Almost.
Almost cramping over here.
Flirting with the cramp.
Okay, so on this side, find that block placement where you can really solidly connect thigh to block and block to belly. And then lean back enough to lift the heel off the ground. Bend that knee tightly and externally rotate. And then just crush the block as we start to straighten the knee. Only as much as you can keep the block. Internally rotate and bend, and then one more rep, externally rotate. Twisting that knee joint as you straighten, and then twisting it the other way to start bending. Good. Take a moment to reset, pull that block in tighter, really flex the hip tighter. Okay, and this time I'm going to try to take the block from you. Lift that heel, bend the knee tight and internally rotate. And then don't let me steal the block as you straighten your leg, as you externally rotate and bend. One more rep, team. Stay with me. Stay moving smooth. 1 mile an hour pace, even though this work is super demanding. And relax. Nice. Okay. So go ahead and set that. Come back up to standing. And we're going to do our final kind of drill, our finale ankle movement. So set up just like you were set up before for a straight leg ankle dorsiflexion stretch. And just take a moment here and feel how your arms should be able to straighten and bring you upright. So if you need to kind of walk a little bit closer to the wall, your head might be almost touching the wall. And this is really where you might need the book under your forefoot to actually get a stretch.
Yeah.
Yep, need that? Okay. Because we need to be able to move away from the wall and back towards the wall. And when you're all the way lean towards it, you want to find a stretch in your calf. Okay, so take a second to find this, get set up into it. Good. Now with elbows bent, so we have room to move away from the wall.
Now with elbows bent.
Okay. So heel is on the floor, really stretching. Okay. And then that line of stretch or that line of tension is where we're going to aim our first contraction. Toes get heavy, forefoot gets heavy, and we find that very similar Pale's contraction that we had last time. But now use that Pale's contraction to slowly start pushing yourself away from the wall and therefore bring the ankle out of its end range. Good. Now pause there, turn on your strongest gas pedal up feeling, trying to light up the front of the ankle, and use that to pull yourself back toward the wall. Pulling, pulling, pulling until it feels like you cannot stretch that ankle anymore. If you felt like you could, you might need to slide your foot or your book and foot back further, and then gas pedal down first. Use that gas pedal down to bring yourself upright. When you're tall or your arms are straight, pause, think gas pedal up, and pull yourself into your end range. Pull yourself into a stretch. Going smooth so you can really consciously execute here. When you're stretched, gas pedal down. Keep moving at your own pace for this kinetic stretch. Everything is active. Nothing is gravity just pulling you into it, but you're actively owning this whole range of motion right to the edge and all the way back to neutral. 20 more seconds. Good. Final rep, pulling yourself forward or pushing yourself out. Take your time, no rush. It's more important that we really get this contraction into your tissue. That's the change maker. Okay, pull, 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 and relax. Let it go. Good. Okay. Shake that leg out, and we're going to do the same drill on the other side. Very nice. Okay. Now, depending on where your tightness is for your ankle, depending on what tissues are really tight, this straight leg work might feel way more blocked or way more limited than bent leg versions. Or you might be the opposite, that the bent leg versions of stretching your ankle are more intense than the straight leg version. So just useful information to note as we wrap this class. You can let us know that, and that will really help us know how to program for you moving forward. But let's see how this final leg feels, how this right ankle is stretching. Finding that end range, finding your setup, making sure your elbows are bent again. Good. Okay. Now from this end range stretch, make sure your heel stays on the floor as you start to engage gas pedal down. And then really engage your arm pressure as well so that your whole body is involved. And then gradually start bringing your body upright through the effort of that gas pedal down. Almost imagine you don't need your arms. Okay, and then pause here, think gas pedal up, and use that gas pedal up to pull your straight leg forward, pulling yourself into your absolute end range stretch. Then pause there, gas pedal down. Then use gas pedal down to drive yourself back up. Good. And you're off to the super, super slow races, okay? Moving at your own 0.5 mile per hour pace, mostly so that you have plenty of bandwidth and focus to find those contractions. You don't actually get any special credit for lots of reps for these kinetic stretches. It's all about the time that your tissue spends under tension. So really draw it out, make those connections to your own body, your own active sensations. 20 more seconds. Maybe surprising yourself to get further into that stretch or to find more of your body to contract as you move. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ooh, spicy, okay? Ooh. Shake it out. hand on wall for balance, and we're just going to save and upload this work with some ankle cars, just like we started at the beginning of class. So leg reaches out in front of you, toe pulls up. See what you can do to keep your toes as just an extension of your foot and not doing their own thing. And just give me 20 seconds of rotating in the first direction, whichever way you chose. Good. And remember, if that knee can stay locked the whole time, that lower leg cannot rotate, or at least rotate independent of your thigh. Good. So pause wherever you're at, go the other way. Really trying to get in touch with all of those shortening, contracting sensations that actually pull you to your end range. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Ooh.
Nice. All right. Just bookmarking, oh, how does it feel different after all that training? And then let's do the other side. Toes pull up, forefoot pulls up into gas pedal up, and then start moving. You know, and that's a huge point that I have felt with Kinstretch is we do all these like slow, sometimes isometric contractions. And then if you can connect that contraction with the movement of a car, then it's like almost, oh yeah, I recognize that. Oh, that's familiar. And it starts to become part of your normal movement vocabulary. And you don't have to think about it. Good. Pause wherever you find yourself and just reverse course. Let's go the other way. Staring down that leg, making sure it's staying totally straight on and not twisting along with the foot motion. 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right. Very nice work. Very curious to hear how this went, what you found in terms of range on each side, contraction on each side. And go ahead and let us know so that we, again, could know how to program for you moving forward. Have a great one.